Well, since I just did my Angry Video Game Nerd review of the Rambo NES game and the two Sega Master System games, I know everybody's expecting me to do a review on the new Rambo movie, so why not, right? But first, for those not familiar with the series, it might be appropriate to introduce you to the first three movies. In 1982, there was First Blood. I consider it to be one of the best action movies ever made. Here, Rambo isn't just a good guy fighting the bad guys, he's a Vietnam vet who comes home from the war only to find his own personal war. When he's mistreated by a police officer, he ends up taking on the entire police force. So he's not really a hero or an anti-hero, he's just a pissed off guy seeking revenge. It's also like a strategy action film. It's not about how many things you can blow up in an hour and a half, it's all about suspense. And just watching him set up the traps or the decoys and just home in on his prey, it's brilliant. In the last scene, Stallone delivers one of his best dramatic monologues ever, and it's not often that we get to see action heroes get emotional like that. It's a great movie, so definitely see it if you haven't. Then in 1985, there's Rambo First Blood Part 2. In this movie, they send him back to Vietnam to rescue prisoners, so this is the first one that made a more traditional hero out of him. There's some good action scenes, a love interest which doesn't turn out too well, and a great ending. This, in a way, is the most classic Rambo movie because it's the one that most of the video games were based off of, and it gets parodied the most. But personally, I don't think it's anywhere near as good as First Blood. Then in 1988, there was Rambo 3. In this one, Rambo is helping Afghanistan against the Russians. The political side of this is kind of complicated and terribly outdated, but it's still a fun movie, maybe not for the right reasons. The whole thing is just full of one-liners. It just seems Rambo has a funny comeback to everything, and the final scene is just ridiculous. There's tanks and helicopters and guys shooting at him from every direction, but he's able to stand in the middle of so much chaos and just not even get scraped. It's the kind of stuff that makes classic movie entertainment, but in all seriousness, this is easily the worst of the series. Now, on to Rambo. Let's face it, there hasn't been a Rambo movie in 20 years, so you think there'd be a lot of hype. But it seems like it just sneaked quietly into the theaters, and in January. And to tell you the truth, I like that. No movie lives up to its hype, so it's best just not to have hype. Now, if you've seen the trailer, you know exactly what to expect. It's a violent war movie. So as far as technical achievements, this movie is an epic masterpiece. Everybody's talking about how bloody it is, and they're not kidding. If you've seen a lot of zombie movies or stuff like that, then it's not that gory. But compared to any other war movie, this just takes the cake. It makes Saving Private Ryan look like, I don't know, bouncing bears from heaven. In the other Rambo movies, when people get shot, they fall down, but here their bodies just shred apart. Before, when they get blown up, they just erupt into a fiery explosion, but here their bodies just burst into geysers of blood. Machetes slice through people, heads fly off, arms fly off, legs fly off. It's crazy. Remember Hot Shots Part 2, the scene where they're spoofing Rambo 2, and he's just shooting everybody, bodies are piling up, and there's like a counter at the bottom that's just counting up all the bodies, and it flashes on the screen, it says equal to Rambo, equal to RoboCop, and then it just says bloodiest movie ever. Well, now they need to make Hot Shots Part 3, because that joke couldn't possibly be more obsolete. As far as story, Rambo is a little lacking, and at the end it had me wondering, what the hell did I just see? But that's not to say that it's completely shallow. I mean, there's not really any good dialogue, but Rambo says a lot with just his face. Often he would just give a cold stare accompanied by a bass rumble across the theater, and his speech about how when you're pushed, killing's as easy as breathing, that just made my skin crawl. It wasn't anywhere near as good as First Blood, but it still had heart. Although I'm still fresh off of seeing it, and it might be too soon to say, but I think it was better than 2 and 3. Those movies seem so polished, but this was raw and dark, with a lot of dirty camera work, if you know what I mean. The camera moves around a lot, pulls focused, almost like a documentary. It just felt more real. Rambo's not running around without a shirt, showing off his physique. There's no funny one-liners. It's just a balls to the wall, down to earth, ass-kicking action fest. One thing I really missed was Colonel Troutman. He was the classic mentor character, much like to Rambo what Mickey was to Rocky. Of course, if Richard Crenna was still alive, I'm sure he would have at least had a small part, but he appears briefly in a flashback taken from clips from the previous Rambo movies, but there isn't really any mention of his character. In fact, there's not really much references to the previous movies, and by simply calling it Rambo makes the movie seem like it stands on its own, which brings me to another point. If this wasn't Rambo, if this was just some other guy but in the same movie, I don't think there would be much interest in seeing it. So I have to admit, the reason I went to see it was because it was Rambo. I was a child when the first three movies came out, so being able to see a fresh new one in the theater was really a thrill, and I'm also really looking forward to seeing the new Indiana Jones. But after that, there's not really much left. So, anyway, if you're a Rambo fan, go check it out. The audience gave a huge roaring applause at the end, which should at least clue you in that it's not bad. It might not be the most well written film you'll ever see, but you shouldn't be disappointed.